have been lied to. Since childhood, you were fed the illusion that discipline comes from motivation, from feeling inspired enough to push through resistance, from waking up energized and making vision boards as if arranging pretty pictures could repair the internal chaos eating you alive. But here is the truth they will not tell you. Discipline is not about bursts of enthusiasm or convenient willpower. Discipline is conquest. It is the brutal campaign to seize the throne of your own mind before your appetites, your excuses, and your weakness claim it permanently. Most people exist like occupied territories, ruled by whatever impulse feels strongest in the moment, governed by comfort, controlled by distraction. They surrender inch by inch to laziness dressed as self-care, to procrastination disguised as planning. They do not understand that without strategic self-rule, there is no sovereignty, no power, no destiny worth claiming. The man who cannot command himself will be commanded by everything else. Machiavelli knew this. Before you conquer kingdoms, you must first conquer the empire within. Right now, your throne sits empty or occupied by forces that despise your potential. The only question is whether you will finally wage the war required to take it back. Machiavelli wrote The Prince as a manual for political survival, but buried within its ruthless pages lies a secret more valuable than any kingdom. The prince who cannot govern his own court will never hold his throne. Your mind is that court. Every thought that enters is a courtier seeking influence. Some arrive bearing gifts of focus, determination, and strategic clarity. Others come disguised as allies but work secretly for your destruction, whispering that you deserve rest when you need action, that tomorrow is soon enough when today demands execution, that comfort is wisdom when comfort is poison. A weak prince allows treacherous courtiers to multiply until they outnumber the loyal. He listens to their counsel, adopts their perspective, and wakes one morning to discover he is no longer ruler but prisoner in his own palace. This is your life if you do not build the internal fortress. Look at the golden-crowned victor. That laurel wreath was not placed upon his head by foreign conquest or inherited privilege. It was forged in the foundry of self-dominion. Every muscle in that physique represents not genetic fortune but strategic repetition, the daily violence of choosing discipline over desertion. This is virtue in its truest form, not virtue as morality but virtue as capability, as raw operational power that functions independent of feeling. Virtue is what allows you to act when action feels impossible, to maintain the protocol when every fiber of your being screams for exception. It is the capacity to look at your own weakness and strike without hesitation or mercy. Without this fortress, you are not living. You are being lived. Every advertisement that catches your eye governs you. Every notification that interrupts your focus rules you. Every craving that derails your intention conquers you. Machiavelli observed that fortified cities withstand sieges that obliterate undefended villages. The same principle applies to the fortified mind. Discipline is the architecture of defense, the system of walls and watchtowers that transforms you from vulnerable settlement into impregnable stronghold. Examine your patterns with surgical honesty. What time did you actually begin work yesterday? Not when you sat at your desk, but when you stopped pretending to prepare and started executing. How many decisions did you postpone because you needed to feel ready first? How many gates did you leave open for the enemy? Your answers reveal whether you are building an empire or managing a slow collapse. The courtiers are already inside. The only question is who they serve. Machiavelli spent years watching princes rise and fall, and he identified the force that destroyed more kingdoms than any army: fortuna. Not fortune as we sanitize it today, as lucky breaks or positive thinking, but fortune as a violent river that cares nothing for your intentions, your potential, or your plans. When fortuna floods, she obliterates the unprepared with complete indifference. The undisciplined man stands in her path holding dreams like paper shields. He wakes Monday morning filled with resolution, creates elaborate plans for transformation, swears this time will be different. By Wednesday, a setback arrives. By Friday, a temptation. By Sunday, he is face down in the mud, making the same promises he made last month, last year, last decade. He is not living his life. His life is living him. He is not making choices. Circumstances are choosing for him. This is what it means to exist without dikes. The disciplined individual understands a truth that saves empires. Fortuna respects only preparation. She does not negotiate with wishes or reward good intentions. She tests infrastructure. When the river rises, she asks one question: did you build barriers before I arrived, or will you beg for mercy after? Discipline is not a personality trait or a feeling state. It is engineering. It is the construction of routines, systems, and unbreakable laws that channel destructive force into productive direction. The river still flows with the same violence, but it no longer floods your fields or drowns your ambitions. Instead, it turns your mills and irrigates your crops. Same water, different outcome. The difference is not the river. The difference is what you built before it came. Consider motivation for what it truly is: favorable weather. When you wake up feeling energized and focused, fortuna is calm. The wind is at your back. Any fool can sail when conditions are perfect. But weather changes. By afternoon, resistance arrives. By evening, exhaustion. By next week, crisis. The undisciplined sailor celebrates smooth seas as proof of his skill, then drowns when the storm comes because he never learned to navigate without perfect conditions. The disciplined operator performs identically regardless of internal weather because he has removed emotion from the operational equation. He does not consult his feelings about whether to execute the protocol. He consults the protocol. His morning routine runs whether he feels inspired or dead inside. His work blocks activate whether he wants to focus or wants to scroll. His evening review happens whether he feels accomplished or defeated. This is the insight modern culture refuses to metabolize because it destroys the comfortable mythology they sell. Your feelings are not guidance. They are weather. They are fortuna testing whether you built dikes or dreams. The person who waits to feel ready will wait forever because readiness is not an emotion. It is a decision followed by execution regardless of emotion. Build infrastructure that functions when fortuna floods. Build systems that operate when motivation dies. Build rules that execute when feelings fail. Or spend your life as wreckage in the river, wondering why the water keeps winning. Modern self-help has perfected the art of making defeat feel like wisdom. Listen to your body. Practice self-compassion. Honor your need for balance. These phrases arrive wrapped in therapeutic language, delivered by voices that sound nurturing and kind, and they are fortuna's most effective weapons. Machiavelli would recognize them instantly as the beautiful lies that every failing prince tells himself before his kingdom collapses. They sound like care but function as permission. Permission to skip the workout because you feel tired. Permission to avoid the difficult conversation because you need to protect your peace. Permission to scroll instead of execute because you deserve rest. Each permission is a small surrender. Each surrender strengthens the enemy. After 10,000 small surrenders, you wake up to discover you are no longer negotiating with weakness. Weakness is negotiating with itself about which part of your potential to consume next. True discipline is not cruel, but it is cold. It makes no exceptions for feelings because feelings are the primary saboteurs of sovereignty. Your emotions are not neutral observers providing helpful data. They are active combatants fighting for their own survival, and their survival depends on your continued weakness. The part of you that wants comfort will manufacture elaborate justifications for why today is different, why this exception makes sense, why strategic surrender is actually strategic wisdom. This is not self-awareness. This is the enemy wearing your face. The architecture of self-rule requires 3 non-negotiable principles executed daily. First, constant reconnaissance. Observe your thoughts and impulses the way a general observes troop movements on a battlefield map. Weakness does not announce itself with trumpets. It reveals itself through patterns. You notice you have been waking up 15 minutes later each day for a week. You observe the tasks you consistently avoid. You catalog the negotiations that begin with just this once. Document these as intelligence reports on your internal enemy. What you do not measure, you cannot counter. What you refuse to see will destroy you in darkness. Second, fixed fortifications. Establish routines that function regardless of emotion. These are your strongholds, the parts of your day where discipline has already won before the battle begins. Your morning ritual activates at the same time whether you slept well or poorly. Your work blocks execute whether you feel focused or scattered. Your evening review happens whether you want to reflect or want to collapse. These are secured territory. The war still rages everywhere else, but here, in these fortified hours, victory is guaranteed by structure rather than feeling. Third, decisive action without deliberation. The moment a task enters your schedule, it becomes law. There is no internal debate about whether you feel like doing it. There is no negotiation about better timing. Machiavelli advised princes to be feared rather than loved when necessary. Apply this to yourself. Your comfort must fear your commitment more than it loves its excuses. When the alarm sounds, you rise. When the block begins, you work. When the protocol demands execution, you execute. The decision was made when you built the system. Now you simply obey the architecture you constructed in a moment of clarity for use in moments of chaos. The crisis will come. Your systems will face their first real siege on a Tuesday morning when you slept 3 hours, your body aches, an emergency hijacks your calendar, and every cell in your being screams that today is the day for reasonable exception. This is not bad luck. This is the test. This is where pretenders are separated from princes. The pretender surveys the chaos and declares the situation special, the circumstances extenuating, the exception justified. He tells himself he will return to protocol tomorrow when conditions improve. He is lying. Tomorrow will bring its own siege. What he is actually doing in this moment is answering the only question that matters: who governs here? The test is simple in its brutality. Do you abandon the protocol when it becomes inconvenient, or do you execute the strategy precisely when it feels impossible? Do you skip the morning routine because you are tired, or do you run it because you are tired and the routine is not a reward for good sleep but a law that operates independent of circumstance? Victory here is not motivational. It is political. You are not proving you have willpower. You are demonstrating to every watching part of yourself who actually holds the throne. Each time you execute when execution feels impossible, you are annexing territory. Each time you surrender to excuse, you are ceding land to the enemy. The internal audience is always watching. They are deciding whether to serve a ruler or join a rebellion. What most people miss is the mathematics of sovereignty. Each microdiscipline is not merely a good choice. It is a political statement declaring who rules. When you wake on time despite exhaustion, you are not just preserving a schedule. You are announcing that commitments are trank comfort. When you complete the workout despite resistance, you are not just exercising. You are establishing precedent that agreements with yourself are binding law. These victories accumulate not through addition but through multiplication. 100 discipline choices do not make you 100 units stronger. They create momentum that transforms the entire system. What began as war gradually becomes administration. What felt impossible becomes routine. What required forced march becomes natural patrol of secured territory. But here arrives the final trap that destroys more princes than any external enemy: the belief that victory is permanent. Machiavelli documented the pattern across centuries. Princes who won their thrones through strategic brilliance grew comfortable once crowned. They relaxed vigilance. They trusted in past success. They believed the kingdom would maintain itself. Then they woke up in exile wondering what happened. The self operates by identical physics. The moment you believe discipline is achieved rather than practiced, you begin the slide back toward chaos. The routines that felt automatic start requiring decision. The decisions invite negotiation. The negotiations reopen the war you thought you had won. Vigilance is not a phase. It is the permanent condition of sovereignty. The systems you built require maintenance. The protocols need reinforcement. The golden crown on the victor's head is not a trophy commemorating a finished campaign. It is armor worn into continuing battle, a reminder that rulership is not a destination but an ongoing act of strategic governance that ends only when you do. Look again at the laurel-crowned figure. When you first saw him, you saw victory without understanding the battlefield. You saw gold without recognizing the forge. Now you know what that crown represents. It was not awarded by committee or bestowed by luck. It was not the prize for a single heroic moment. It was forged in the daily fire of strategic victories over the self, each one invisible to observers but recorded in the internal ledger where sovereignty is calculated. That golden tone is not wealth in the conventional sense. It is the alchemical transformation that occurs when base impulse is repeatedly subjected to disciplined force until it transmutes into power. The metal that emerges from this process cannot be purchased or inherited. It can only be forged through the brutal repetition of choosing governance over surrender. The direct, unflinching gaze of the figure is the gaze of someone who has fought for sovereignty and won, not once in a moment of inspiration, but as a daily practice that has calcified into identity. He does not look at the world wondering if he has what it takes. He knows exactly what he is because he has proven it to himself through the only evidence that matters: execution under fire, protocol during chaos, law when lawlessness would be easier. This is the ultimate Machiavellian achievement. Not to be loved by your weaknesses but to be feared by them. Not to negotiate with your potential but to be respected by it. Not to hope for sovereignty but to rule in the only realm that ever truly belonged to you. The throne of your life is occupied right now. This is not metaphor. Someone or something is making decisions about how your hours are spent, which tasks get executed, which excuses get accepted, which patterns perpetuate. The question facing you is not whether you are capable of taking that throne. Capability is irrelevant without execution. Potential means nothing without the strategic campaign to actualize it. The question is whether you will finally stop negotiating with your weaknesses and start governing them. Whether you will abandon the comfortable lie of working on yourself and embrace the uncomfortable truth of commanding yourself. Working on yourself is therapy language designed to make defeat feel like progress. Commanding yourself is political language that recognizes you are either the ruler or the territory being ruled. The crown awaits. Not for the most talented, because talent without discipline is just potential energy that never converts to work. Not for the most intelligent, because intelligence without execution is just elaborate justification for sophisticated procrastination. Not for the most fortunate, because fortune respects only those who build barriers before she floods. The crown awaits the most ruthlessly disciplined. Those who understand that self-rule is not a weekend project or a New Year's resolution but a permanent campaign requiring permanent vigilance. Machiavelli's code is simple. Control yourself first, or spend your life being controlled. By your appetites. By your excuses. By your need for comfort. By circumstances that care nothing for your unrealized potential. The choice was always yours. The throne was always available. The only question was whether you would fight the war required to claim it. Stop reading about sovereignty and start enforcing it. The battlefield is open. The enemy is waiting. And the crown will not place itself. If this resonated with you, you're probably not here by accident. Subscribe. This channel is for people choosing clarity over chaos.